Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. This is your girl Angel from Simply Angel Tia. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to crochet a headband, and as you can see here, we're using the famous puff stitch that I've used for different projects, and everybody is asking if I could make different things using the puff stitch. And for this video tutorial we're going to be doing this headband, and as you can see here, it's very nice, it's very stylish, it's very warm as well. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, my lovelies, so before we get this video started, as per usual, I'm going to show you everything that I'm using for it. So I have just a little bit of yarn here that is left over from a project that I did, I think probably sometimes early last year. And I have a whole bunch of this type of yarn that is just kind of laying around because I had them left over. So I decided I'll probably do something as easy as a headband, and it's gonna need just a little bit of yarn, and that's what I'm using this for. I don't have all the information for it. I know it's 100% acrylic. It's a medium weight number 4. I will look up the information for it, and I'll put all the information in the description box below in regards to everything, the color and the brand, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. For a crochet hook, I'm using a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook, or I9 US. I have a darning needle here and a stitch marker. This one you need, this one is an optional, so just have one laying around in case you're gonna need one. I have my tape measure, which is also optional for me, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why that is, and of course the scissors. So for this, for those of you who haven't done a hat before, or like a headband, anything like that, it's good to have one of these to measure the circumference of your head, or the person you're making the hat or the headband for, because it does help to be able to get the right size. For example, the circumference of my head is 21 inches. So I'm gonna be doing a chain that is very close to this. Actually, I'm gonna be doing a chain of 61, one being the turning chain, but so about 60, and it's going to give me about the circumference of my head for this headband. Okay, so that is why you need one of these. If you already have the information of the head of your circumference and you're making one for yourself, of course you don't need to have one laying around every time, because you will know exactly how many chains usually get you about the size of your head. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna put all of these things away so we can go ahead and get started. Okay guys, so I'm going to get started with this project. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of a long tail here that I will be able to use to put my headband together at the end. So something like that, not something too big. And then I'm going to start by doing the foundation chain. And to do that, I'm going to start with a slip knot. Okay, just like that. Something like that, and then I'm going to do a chain of 60. So again, I'm doing a chain of 60 because it's going to give me the circumference of my head for the headband. So you could either be doing more depending on the circumference of your head, or less. For this stitch, which is the puff stitch, as long as you have an even number, so have even numbers, not an odd number. Okay, and in this case we're going to be doing a chain of 61, but that 61th stitch or chain is going to be our turning chain. So then it's going to leave us with the 60 stitches, which is an uneven number. Okay, so you can either do 40 plus the 1, or you could do 80 plus the 1, you could do 66 plus the 1, as long as you have multiples of 2 plus 1 at the end. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I have my chain of 61 here. Okay, so as you can see, this is how big it is, or how wide it is, and this is going to be the circumference of my head right here when we work on the band. So it's pretty much going to be like that. But because anything that you do, the chain is always going to appear longer than the actual work. Why? Because when you start to work into the work itself, it's going to shrink your work just a tiny bit. Okay, and also it depends on how tight or loose you crochet. It may shrink significantly, or it could just shrink a little bit. So just be mindful of that. Always make your work a little bit, not too tight but not too loose either. Okay, so to start the first row, this is the 61 stitch here that we had. We're going to skip that, And in the second stitch, we're going to go in the back of that chain and do a single crochet stitch, just like that. Oops, let's make sure you can actually see it. And then we're going to go into the next stitch. Again, grab the back of the chain and do a single crochet stitch. Okay, so this is the front of the stitches here, and then this is the back, and that's where we're working into, is the back. So again, you go into the next stitch, grab the back and do a single crochet stitch, and we're going to do this all the way to the end of the chain. So do so, and when you get to the end, come back and I will show you how to start the second row. Okay guys, so I have completed the first row here of the single crochet stitches in the back of the chain. So that's pretty much how this first row looks like. So very nice and even. There's no looser stitches and some tighter. You just kind of work and make sure your work is very even like that. Okay, so to start the second row, we're going to do a chain one. And in this project, chain one is going to be the beginning of each row on either side. Okay, so chain one and turn. Now this is where we're going to do something a little bit different. So we're going to do back loop single crochet for 10 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to switch to the puff stitch. So we're going to start the stitch right after the chain one and we turn. We're just going to go into that stitch and do our single crochet in the back. Then we're going to move on to the very next stitch and do the same. So this is called a back loop single crochet, and you're going to do this for 10 stitches. So right now we have 1 2 3 4. Okay, so that is the 10 stitches for the single crochet in the back loop, and then we're going to switch to the puff stitches now. So this is where you need to pay a little bit more attention if you haven't done puff stitches before. So in this very next stitch here, right after our previous stitch, we're going to go into that stitch, just go into it and then yarn over and bring it back. And you have 2 loops on the hook. You're going to yarn over, go into the same stitch, bring the yarn back. You have 4 loops on the hook like that. Yarn over, go into the same stitch, bring it back, and you will have 6 loops on the hook. Okay, there you go, 6. Then you're going to yarn over and go through all 6, and it's going to be a little bit just getting used to making sure you go through all 6 like that, and then chain 1 to lock it in. Okay, so that's the first puff stitch. We're going to skip this stitch right here. In the next one, we're going to go in there and do our puff stitch, and I'm going a little bit faster here because I showed it a little bit slower in the first stitch. Okay, and I'll show it a little bit slower here. So you skip this stitch, and the next one you do your puff stitch. And make sure you always have the 6 loops on the hook at the end, because it's going to create the consistent size of the puff stitches. If you have less loops in some before you loop through, or more, some puff stitches are going to look fatter than the others. So you want to make sure they're always kind of the same number of loops that you're doing. And in this case, it's 6 loops on the hook before you yarn up and go through all 6. So that's pretty much your puff stitch here. And you're going to do this until you have 10 puff stitches left at the end. I'm not sure what this is here, but we're going to take it out because it's a discolored part of the stitch. So you're going to just make sure you have 10 stitches left, and then when you have 10 stitches left, you're going to stop there. But what I will do, or what you can do, is just count 10. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and in this 10th stitch, put your stitch marker there. Okay, and you're going to do your puff stitches until you've come to the end. So it could be either in this stitch here, or it could be in this, depending on how your work comes through. In my case, I will probably end up doing my final puff stitch in this stitch right here, and then this is going to be the one that I will skip before I do my single crochets. So it depends on how many stitches you started off with at the beginning. If you have one left at the end, it's okay. Just we're gonna end up skipping that one. If you don't have any left and you have your puff stitch right at the end, then we're going to just do a single crochet stitch in the very next one to start the 10 single crochet stitches at the end. Okay, so go ahead and do your puff stitches until you get to the stitch marker, and then come back and we will move on to completing that row and starting the next row. Okay guys, so I have gone all the way to where my stitch marker is, and as you can see, I am just a stitch away from where my stitch marker is, which in this case means we're going to skip that stitch and work into the stitch that has a stitch marker. But also make sure that you have the number of puff stitches here that are going to be, make sure you count them. So in this case I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 20. I have 20 puff stitches here, so make sure you are going to be having 20 puff stitches in every row that you do with puff stitches. And if you had 21, then you will make sure you have 21 in every row that you do. And that's just, it makes it even for your work. Okay, so we're gonna take this guy off, put it on the side. We're going to skip that stitch here, and in the stitch where the stitch marker was, we're going to do our single crochet there in the back of the loop, and then we're going to go into the next and do our single crochet in the back of that stitch. And we're just going to now do these single crochet stitches all the way to the end of this row. And this is how the rows with puff stitches are going to pretty much go. It's going to be 20 puff stitches and then 10 single crochet stitches on each side. And then that's pretty much how the whole process is gonna go. So in this last one, as you guys know, I go through both loops instead of just the back. For my final stitch, chain 1, turn my work. And you can continue to put your stitch markers in places where you need to switch your stitches, but I won't continue to do that because I will just know where I need to change my stitches. But if you're a little bit confused and you don't know where to transition from the puff stitches to the single crochet stitches or the single crochet stitches to puff stitches, then make sure you have stitch markers, maybe even 2, where you can do one on this side and one on the other. But I am going to be working without puffs, without the stitch markers. So after you do your chain 1 and turn, in the very next stitch right after your chain 1, you're going to do your single crochet, and that's 1. And you're going to do this for the next 10, because we're going to then move to doing the puff stitches for the middle part, and then we're going to do puff stitches, 20 of them, and then after that we go back to transitioning to the single crochet stitches in the back of the stitches like this. Okay, so as you can see, I'm doing my 8, 9 and 10. So my 10th one is the one right before the puff stitch. As you can see here, this is the puff stitch right here. And so now we're going to be doing the puff stitches. We're going to skip this stitch right here, and in this next stitch here, we just happen to be that gappy area. We're going to do our next puff stitch, so which is our first one for this row. Chain 1, skip this stitch right here. In this stitch, you do your puff stitch, and then of course you're going to continue to do this all the way to the end here. Your very final puff stitch is going to go right onto the left of the last puff stitch from the previous row. And then you're going to transition to doing the single crochet stitches for the next 10 stitches. And then you're just going to keep doing that. And then we're going to switch the stitches after this row of puff stitch. We're going to switch to doing 4 rows of the single crochet stitches in the back loop, and then we're going to do this until we have 16 rows. For mine, I'm going to do 16 rows before I finish the project. So go ahead and do the puff stitches, however, until you get to the end here. When you get here, come back and I will show you how to transition to the single crochet stitches and then start the next row. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay, so I have gone ahead and completed my 20 puff stitches, as you can see here. Okay, and now I have my 10 remaining stitches where I'm going to be going in the back of these stitches and doing my single crochet stitch, and I'm just going to go right into it like that and complete the single crochet stitches in the back loop. And then of course, as you guys know how I work, when I get to the very last one, I go through both loops, and then we're going to chain one and turn and start the next row. And the next 4 rows after this are going to all be rows of single crochet stitches in the back loop before we switch back to the puff stitches for 2 rows, and then we're going to alternate it like that. Okay, so this is pretty much how the 3 first rows look like. Okay, this is your puff stitches here. These are your single crochet on each end. And the reason I'm doing that is when we connect our headband together, when it's done, this thin side here is going to be where we do our twist. And then this side that is puff stitches is going to be the front. And then of course with this the side that will have a twist, you can wear it either on the side, on the back, on the front. It's at that point, it's just up to you how you want to style your headband. Okay, so again, I have done my chain one and turned, and now we're just going to do single crochet stitches all across for 4 rows. So this one here is going to be the first row, and then when we do those 4 rows, we're going to transition over to doing the puff stitches again, and then repeating that until you have the length, the width of the headband. For me, I'm going to do 16 rows, but I'm going to do 15 total and then show you how to do the final 16th one, because it's going to be a little bit different from what we're doing now. Okay, so I will ask you guys to then now repeat this. So I'm just going to show you here. When you go where the puff stitches are, you just go into the very next stitch and then do your puffs, that you do your single crochet. So there's these stitches right here on top of the puff stitches, these V shapes, and you just go into those and pick the back of those V's, the back loop of those V's, and just do your single crochets like that. So there's nothing complicated with that at all. And then when you get to the end, you will do your chain one, turn, repeat these for 3 more rows. Okay, so let me just talk a little bit about it here, because I'm not going to be coming back to the camera until you have your I have 15 rows. So single crochet stitch that we're working on, that's our first row, and we're going to do 3 more. And then we're going to transition to doing a row of the puff stitches, which is 2 rows, but making sure that for the first 10 stitches we do single crochet, and then transition into the puff stitches. And then at the end, when you have 20 puff stitches, you will have 10 stitches to go. You're going to do 10 10 stitches of the single crochets in the back loop, and then you're going to repeat that. So I'm going to do this until I have 15 rows total, and then I'm going to come back to show you guys how to finish the final row, and that will be the end of the build up. And then we're going to obviously join our headband to be able to create the twist on this headband. Okay, so I will see you guys when I have 15 rows completed. Okay, my lovelies, so I have gone ahead and completed my 15 rows here. So as you can see, this is pretty much how my work looks like. These are my 10 stitches of the single crochets in the back loops here, and then I have my 20 puff stitches in the middle, and I have this row of puff stitches here, a row of single crochets, a row of, not rows but multiples of puff stitches, and then so on and so forth. And like I said, I would do 15 rows and come back, so 15 rows total, including the first row of the single crochet stitches that we started with. And that's pretty much how it looks like. So far, with just 1 row to go in this whole project, I have about 4, it's gonna be 4 inches wide for this headband when I add my single crochet stitch here. And as you can see as well, with all the little bit of yarn that I had, this is all I have left now, which is, I'm so lucky that I will have enough to do my final row of single crochet, because otherwise I would have ran out and then not have the design the way I wanted it to be. But we're lucky, so we're gonna finish that final row of single crochet, and then we're going to do our joining with creating the twist as well at the end. Okay, all right, so this is my 16th row that we're going to be doing now. So just like we've been doing, I'm going to do a chain one, turn my work, Okay, and for this row, of course, I'm going to start with the 10 these 10 crochets here. What, instead of going in the back like we have been doing, this is a row of just regular single crochet stitches across, and that is why I wanted to come back to show you guys how to do that, because we want to imitate the first row that we did here. If you remember, we did a chain of 61, skip the first row stitch, sorry, and then we did single crochet stitches in all the 60 stitches that were left. So we're going to pretty much repeat that here. We're not going to be doing it in the back loop, but we're just going to be going through both loops and doing our single crochet like this. Okay, so just like that, go into the next stitch, go into both loops and do your single crochet, and then go into the next, do your single crochet, and we're just going to do this all across until we get to the other side. So this is the only row that you're not doing anything in the back loop like we've been doing for the 15 stitches. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way, so go ahead and do so when you get to the end. Oh, I will quickly show you how to do that over the puff stitches here. So as you can see, these puff stitches have the V's. You're just going to grab both loops like that and do your single crochet. You're going to go into that one and do your single crochet, and then in the next one grab the stitches. So it's gonna be a little bit easier where it's a little bit gappy like this, but with this stitch that is right on top, you're just going to make sure you grab both loops like this, like that. See, there's these two stitches here. You're going to grab them both like that. Okay, so go ahead and do this all the way to the end. When you get to the end, come back and I will show you how to join the work. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, so I have done my single crochet stitches, as you can see here. By the way, look, this is how much yarn I have left, and I have 2 stitches to do my single crochet stitches in. I'm just wanting to tell you guys how lucky I was with this project, because literally this is the end of the project right here, and I have literally just enough to complete this row here like that. Look at that, look at that. And this is also, by the way, why I have this technique of leaving some yarn hanging, because if I was to have 2 stitches to go and I have this, I could always snatch a little bit of it and add it to the other side and finish that row off. But I always do this because now too, for me to be able to connect my work, I have this left. Because if I did not have that left here, it could have probably not been too careful with reserving the yarn and being careless and doing, you know, stitches that are using too much yarn and stuff like that. But anyways, I just wanted to brag, but this is pretty much, I have these now left to be able to join my work together here. But anyways, that is pretty much it. That is our headband here. Okay, well, it's not completed yet, but this is pretty much it. So we have the final row here matching the first row that we started, so that we don't have one side that is looking different than the other. This way you can wear your headband where this is the bottom, this is the top, or vice versa. Okay, so all right, so we're gonna go ahead then and talk a little bit joining of our work. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm going to put my string here into the darning needle. Let's try that again and make sure everything goes through the space. There you go. And then in terms of joining, we're going to do a twist like I said earlier, and you can do the twist in any way you want, but usually in this case here, both sides are exactly the same, so you don't have to worry about which side is the inside, which one is the outside. But if that was the case and you wanted to do your twist, then you would always make sure you bring the side that you want to be the inside of the work will go, or the outside of the work will go on the inside when you fold, because when you do end up twisting it, you're going to reverse it like this so that the side you want to show is on the outside. So hopefully you guys understand that, but in this case we don't have to worry about that. We could pretty much kind of fold it in any direction because it won't matter. So to do our twist then, and by the way, if you are not to do a twist at all, then you would just join your work here in a straight line like this, and your work will just kind of be done like that, and that would be your headband. But we're doing a twist, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that, and this is how we're going to be doing it. Let's change this and put it like this so I can work on this side. So I'm going to hold this side, and I'm going to hold this side, and I'm going to bring the two sides together like this. Okay, and then I'm going to take this side and fold it like this into half. I'm going to take this other side and kind of insert it between like this. Okay, and then I'm going to bring this in like this. So this is how I'm gonna do this, and I'm going to then be joining it up here, because when I end up twisting it and opening it, I have my twist right there. Okay, but for now I'm going to just kind of hold it like this. I have my work here, and we're going to start joining, and I'm just going to go all the way from this side here, go through all the way until I come out on the other side, just like that. And then I'm going to pull, and I usually make sure I go into that same spot again, just to make sure that part here is fully secured like so. And then I'm going to move to the next spot, and just make sure you're being careful not to pull some strings or some yarn that's gonna make it look weird. You're just gonna go in and go all across. Okay, so go ahead and do this. It's pretty much just joining your work until you get to the end here. If we have enough yarn, we could always kind of play by trying to go back this way just to make it extra strong. But for now, let's concentrate on doing just going one direction to the end. See you guys in a bit. Okay guys, so I am all the way at the end here, and I don't have enough to try and go back, but you don't have to. Usually, just if you're afraid maybe your work is not too strong or the joining here is not too strong, you could always go back one more row like this. But in my case, I don't have too much yarn to go all the way back, so I'm just gonna start weaving this guy in here like this, and then we're going to snip it off. Okay, like that. And then I'm just going to split this into two, and then we're going to tie it in and then be done. And then I'm just going to use my hook to bring one to the other side like that, and then we're going to tie it up, and maybe one more time, and then we're going to cut these guys here like that. And that's all that I have left. This is it, and I'm happy because I don't like to waste yarn. So if I had a little bit longer, I would have been frustrated. But anyway, so this is how your joining should look when you have joined it. But then the fun part is when you flip your work over like that, and that's where you have your twist. Okay, so this is your twist right here, and you can wear your work like this, where this is like in the back, or you could have this right in the front of your head, the forehead. But this is pretty much how the opposite side looks, and this can be the side that is up on your face. Okay, so this is pretty much it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, this is the stitch that everybody likes, so I figured I will do a few different projects with this stitch. I've already done the leg warmers, doing the hat, I'm doing the scarf is already done, the wrist warmers are already done. So this is pretty much all the different projects using this stitch. So I hope you guys had fun with this. Thank you so much for watching the video to the end. And again, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, comment, and as well, let me know if there's anything that you'd like me to make in the future. A lot of the things that I do are mostly recommendation from people asking if I could make something using a certain stitch, and I do usually do so. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thank you so much again, and I will see you guys in the next one. Kwaheri.